I'm glad you could join me today. Today I want to talk about a message that I wish so bad somebody would have told me a few years ago, just so I would stop making stupid decisions and get out of the mess that I found myself in. First, I want to start by reading this email to you that somebody sent to me, and it's about 3 brothers. It says, a cowboy walked into a bar in Texas and he ordered 3 mugs of Lone Star. He walks in the back, sits, and finishes each one in turn. When he finishes them, he goes back to the bar and orders 3 more. The bartender approached the man and said, "You know, a mug goes flat after a draw. It would taste better if you bought one at a time." The cowboy replied, "Well, you see, I have 2 brothers. One is in Australia, the other in Dublin, and I'm in Texas. When we all parted, we said we would remember the days when we would drink together. So I drink one for each of my brothers and then one for myself." The bartender admits that this is a nice custom and he leaves it there. The cowboy becomes a regular in the bar and he drinks the same way every time. He orders 3 mugs and drinks them in turn. One day he comes in, he orders 2 mugs. All the regulars take notice and fall silent. When he comes back to the bar for the second round, the bartender said, "I don't want to intrude on your grief, but I want to offer my condolences on your loss." The cowboy looks quite puzzled for a moment, and then a light dawns on him. He laughs and he said, "Oh no, everybody's just fine in the family," he explains. "It's just that my wife and I joined the Baptist church and I had to quit drinking." He said, "It hasn't affected my brothers though." So what I want to talk to you about today is that partial obedience is still disobedience. That's a little painful, isn't it? Partial obedience is still disobedience. When we partially obey what God's telling us to do, maybe something in your life that you know without a doubt God is telling you this, He's trying to remove something out of your life, or He's trying to put something in your life, and you're just partially doing what God tells you to do, you're staying disobedient. And when we stay disobedient, we've opened the door wide open for Satan to come in and get a foothold in our lives. And disobedience brings with it misery, torment, confusion, being double-minded, always just wondering, should I do this, should I not do this? That's all a result of being disobedient. When we fully obey God, we do exactly what He tells us to do, that's when we have peace, that supernatural peace that passes all human understanding. That's when we have prosperity and favor and health. That's all a result of obeying God. Well, why would we not obey God? Everybody wants to be in the perfect will of God. We want to obey God. Well, the reason we don't fully obey God is because it hurts. Because it's not what our flesh wants to do. It's not what our emotions are agreeing with. Speaking from myself, the times that God, I know, has told me to do something, to get something out of my life, or to embrace something new, and I've just wrestled with God and done a little bit of what He said, but the result was I stayed miserable. So that's one of the reasons I believe we negotiate with God. God, can I just do a little bit? But we stay miserable. God may have told you a year ago to get out of debt. Maybe you paid 1 bill off and now you're in more debt than you were last year at this time. Well, partial obedience is still disobedience, and that's why we stay miserable. God may have been dealing with you about your weight or an addiction, maybe, addicted to alcohol or drugs or cigarettes or whatever it is, and you reason with God, or you just reason with your own self. You just kind of avoid God, but you reason in your own mind that alcohol relaxes you, or you got to take these pills, or you can't sleep at night, or if you stop smoking, you're going to gain weight, or whatever it is. Or God may be telling you to get out of a relationship that you know full well is not the will of God for your life. It's pulling you out of God's will. So maybe you stop going out with that person as much, but you're still going out with them. Partial obedience is still disobedience. Well, an obedient person does right now what they're going to be happy with later on. That's hard. An obedient person does right now what they're going to be happy with later on. An emotional or a disobedient person does whatever feels good right now and almost always regrets it later on. Because if we've learned enough from Joyce Meyer to know that if you choose to live by what your emotions tell you, you will stay miserable. I heard her say the other day, if you choose to give in to what your emotions say and what your feelings are screaming for, she said you might as well write defeated across your forehead because you're playing right into Satan's plan for your life. So obedience for you, it could mean saying no to something that your flesh would love to hang on to, that your flesh would love to say yes to. Or obeying God could mean staying somewhere that, you want to get out of, but God's telling you, stay there. I'm not finished with you there. If you stay there, you're going to see that I have even greater plans for your life. So it's obeying God, but obeying God is hard. This has been one of the hardest things in my life, is to crucify my flesh and do what God was telling me to do and not what Terri wanted to do. I think I used to pray, Lord, conform your will to my will. But I'm telling you, when you begin even just saying, Lord, I'm asking you, conform my will to your will. Just start speaking that out of your mouth. Look at Jesus in the garden. Even he went through that crucifying of the flesh. He even said, Lord, if you can pass this cup from me, if I can get away from having to do this cross thing, then please let me. But he didn't. He didn't get out of it. He had to obey God. And Jesus crucified his flesh in that garden before he ever went on the cross. Just by saying, God, I choose to obey you. As bad as it hurts, I don't want to do it. My emotions are not supporting this decision. Jesus did it anyway. And aren't we glad that he obeyed? Think about the lives that will be affected by you obeying God. Whatever it is deep in your heart he's telling you to do it. And the only way you're going to get to that place of having that strength to obey God when it hurts so bad is by getting alone with him, crying out to him, and drawing on God's strength. Because you can't do it on your own. You can't. There's no way I could be even at this place in my life where I'm at today, without God strengthening me. I heard a story just recently about baby eagles, and it said that they're in this little shell before they're born, and they have this little tooth at the end of their beak, and they peck at that shell over and over and over, and it takes them forever, and it's a struggle. But it said it's a very dangerous thing to try to help that baby eagle get out, because the baby eagle needs the struggle. And then it said the struggle actually prepares them to live the eagle life. Well, it's no different in our lives. As much as we want to avoid it, and I hate saying that this is the way it's got to be, there is a struggle that you have to go through with your flesh when you're trying to crucify your flesh to be in the perfect will of God. But you can do it. You can do it with the help of God. So I want to encourage you this week, spend some time alone with God. Cry out to him. Draw on his strength. Tell him you can't do this on your own, but you want to tap into his grace, which is the strength of God coming on you to do with ease what you could never do on your own. So I want you to get this CD on Breaking the Cycle, because I'm going to encourage you more and more on there, much more than I can do on this 7-minute podcast. But I believe it's going to help you get stronger and build you up to do whatever hard thing God's telling you to do.